بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين نرجع على التعليم والذكر التفكير والنفع بالبعث والمبادرة والاستفادة والحق على التمسك بكتاب الله تعالى وسنة رسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم والدعاء إلى الهدى والدلالة على خير ابتغاء وجه الله وقربه وثوابه سبحانه وتعالى. الحمد لله. Inshallah, today we're going to start the chapter of fasting. We'll take the chapter of 3 lessons, inshallah. So similarly, as always, I'm happy to take questions. Because we have a lot to cover, let's try to keep the questions focused on the specific things and issues we're raising today, inshallah. So the first thing we're going to cover is determining the beginning of the month of Ramadan. Okay, how do we know the month of Ramadan has entered? Such fasting becomes obligatory. Okay, so when we fast, when the month of Ramadan ends, when the month begins. How do we know that? The first way we know that is Sha'ban completing 30 days. Okay, so Sha'ban is 30 days long. It necessitates the next day is Ramadan. Right, because a month can't be longer than 30 days in a Hijri calendar. 29 or 30 days. So if we begin Sha'ban, right, and then it lasts for 30 days, it means the following day is Ramadan without a shadow of a doubt. It can't be any other month, and it can't be Sha'ban. It has to be Ramadan. Now, and if it's not 30 days, it means it's 29 days. And then we know the next day is Ramadan if the moon is sighted. Right, so if the moon is sighted, so Maghrib comes in. So it's the 29th of Sha'ban, right? Maghrib comes in. The moon is sighted. The moon is sighted. It means the next day is Ramadan. Why? Because the moon's been sighted. So it means Sha'ban is 29 days, and then the next day will be Ramadan. Now, some of you may have heard of what we call global sighting and local sighting. So the question being is if, for example, if the moon is seen in one country, or one region, are people in the other region obliged to fast? Okay, there's a difference of opinion. Some scholars say that if the moon is seen in one region, only those in that region are obliged to fast. Right? And those in another region are not obliged to fast. What does that mean? What do we mean by region? So if the sun rises and sets in a certain region, So that's how we define region. The sun rises and sets at the same time. So, for example, we're in Finchley, right in South London, same time. The sun rises and sets at the same time. Right? Or the dawn rather. So which means that they're in the same region. Okay? They're in the same region. However, the difference between if like in North London and like Scotland or Wales or Liverpool, right? They'll be different regions. Provided, of course, not if they're rising at the same time, they're the same region. If they're at different times, they're a different region. So the first opinion will explain what global sighting and the proof for global sighting. So there's a hadith in Sahih al-Bukhari. The Prophet ﷺ, he says, "Sumu li ru'yatihi wa aftiru li ru'yatihi." Right. So begin your fast when you see the moon. Begin your fast when you see the moon, and break your fast when you see the moon. It means if you see the moon at the beginning of on 29th of Sha'ban, right, the next day is Ramadan. If you see the moon on the 29th of Ramadan, it means the next day is Shawwal. Okay, so the hadith is saying, start fasting when you see the moon, and end your fast when you see the moon. Okay, now the understanding of this hadith is in the science of usul al-fiqh. We say this is what we call am, right? It's a general, it's a general address, right? So there's no specification in the hadith. The hadith doesn't say if you see in a certain region fast, if you see another region don't, right? The hadith just says start fasting, right, when you see the moon, and stop fasting when you see the moon. It's it's general. So the scholars that said global sighting suffices went with this hadith. If it's seen in Brazil, if it's seen in wherever it's seen, right? It's seen in one area, then the whole world has to fast. Why? Because the hadith is it's general. There's no specification in the hadith. Na'am. The Shafi'i school were of the opinion, or are of the opinion, that global sighting, seeing in one area doesn't necessitate that everyone else has to fast, right? Which means if it's seen in one place, people in another region don't have to fast, right? Why? Because there's another hadith in Sahih Muslim, it's a hadith Qurayb, right? In which Qurayb, he travelled to Sham, right, before the month of Ramadan. He went to Sham and he fasted Ramadan in Sham, right? And then on the 29th of, on the last day of Ramadan, he travels back to Medina, right? He's in Sham, and they announce Eid in Sham, right? He's in Sham, they announce Eid, right? They announce Eid in Sham. I think it's on a Thursday. Now, so whilst he was in Sham, they announced sighting the moon, right? So they saw the moon in Sham, right? He travels to Medina. So in Sham, in Sham, they've broken their fast. It's Eid. He travels to Medina, and he finds the Muslims still fasting in Medina. And he says to Ibn Abbas, like, is it not enough that they saw the moon in Sham? You with me? They saw the moon in Sham. They're celebrating Eid. Why are the Muslims in Medina not celebrating Eid? He said, Qurayb said, does that not suffice? Ibn Abbas said, no. The people in Sham have seen it, right? We started, the people of Medina started a day later, right? So they hadn't completed 30 days. So Ibn Abbas said, they've seen it, we're still fasting, we haven't seen it. Right, so that was the hadith, the proof of the Shafi'i school that said no, it doesn't suffice if one region sees it, another one doesn't. Every region has to see the moon or finish those 30 days for them to begin or end their fast. Is that clear? Clear? Inshallah. Any question? Oh,
if you don't mind, obviously beginning of every Ramadan and the end Saudi moon sighting committee announcing that they've seen the moon. That this seems to be like the trend, the nature of like our beginning of Ramadan, but they're in a completely different region.
Yeah.
Why doesn't every geographic location have a moon sighting committee to see, like you're saying, locally,
Yeah.
rather than globally?
Because they're both valid opinions, right? So there's one opinion that says every region has to see it. Another opinion says, they're both valid opinions, say no. If they see it in Brazil, in Russia they have to fast, or in Egypt they have to fast. They're both valid opinions. A difference of opinion between them. The point being with this issue is it creates a lot of fitna, right? A lot of fitna. And they're both valid opinions, right? Let's say, for example, someone doesn't believe so and so saw the moon. They said, they want to fast. So let's say it's 29th of Ramadan, right? So and so says they saw the moon. So and so says I don't want to fast. Why do we have to announce it to the world? I'm fasting tomorrow, right? I'm Mr. Pious. I'm better than you because you're not fasting. You want to fast tomorrow? That's fine, but keep it yourself, yani. Do you know what I mean? Like, don't announce it, proclaim it to the world. That's the problem. You want to follow another opinion? Beautiful, right? Do that. Be more precautious, right? But don't announce it and create a fitna for people. I've seen scholars of the highest order, right? The highest caliber. Ramadan was announced not in that specific region, right? Most people, Ramadan was announced in, I'm not going to mention the place. Ramadan was announced in such and such a place, right? And the hakim of that, Ramadan was announced in area A, right? And in area B, the hakim followed area A and said, Khalas, it's Eid, right? So everyone in area B, where they hadn't seen the moon, broke their fast, right? Some of the scholars didn't, because they said, I want to be more precautious, right? And follow the area B where we are. If they, is this clear? We're just like Chinese, it's clear, right? So area A saw the moon, announced it. The hakim, the ruler, the governor of area B, right, said, okay, we're going to follow area A. Most people in area B, they celebrated Eid that day and they ate. A few of the scholars didn't. They said, we're going to be more precautious, right, and we're going to fast. No announcement, right? No, I'm fasting. And then there were some great scholars, right, who said, I have the khutbah to give, right? I need some energy. I'm gonna eat, and I'm gonna take an opinion that I know is valid, and I can have Eid, right? So you had great scholars of the highest caliber taking different opinion, and they're both valid. You with me? And they're both valid. The point is it creates fitna, and it's nafsi. It's very selfish, and people want to debate, and why should we follow so and so? So and so jump, we jump, and it's problematic. And there are also opinions. So Imam al-Ramli in the Shafi'i school, he said that one can follow calculation, right, as an individual. So as an individual, if you know the moon has been sighted via calculation, right, then you can follow that. The ruler can't give a fatwa on that, but the point is you can follow that as an individual. So there are valid opinions, and we shouldn't create a fitna. You follow a local mosque and just make things easy. Any questions on sighting the moon or on that issue? Okay. Now we're going to talk about the conditions of a sound fast. There are 9 sections in this, and we're going to take 3 each lesson. So that was the first one done, and the second one. So the conditions of a sound fast. Someone has to be Muslim, right? In order for their fast. So we're talking about now is when is the fast sound? When do we say you're fast? What are the conditions that have to be present for us to say, okay, this fast is sound. This fast is sound. The first is someone has to be Muslim, right? If a non-Muslim fasts, I fasted as a non-Muslim. I remember the first Ramadan, well, it wasn't my first, I wasn't Muslim, but before I became Muslim, I fasted that Ramadan. but it's not legally like valid for a non-Muslim to fast, because it's not obligatory for them to fast anyway. So they don't. So there's a difference between what we say someone who is a non-Muslim and someone who's an apostate, right? Someone who leaves the religion. So a non-Muslim is someone who's born. They weren't born Muslim. They weren't born Muslim. They weren't born Muslim, and they become Muslim, right? They become Muslim. And the whole idea of oh, we're all born Muslim. I don't like the hadith mentioned. كل مولود ولد على الفطرة, right? Every baby is born upon fitra. Now fitra it's like a primordial natural disposition. It's not doctrinal. So when we say every believer, everyone's born upon fitra, it doesn't mean Islam. It means they're born upon this primordial natural disposition. It doesn't mean they're born Muslim. That's not Allah, that's not correct. Because even someone may say, oh, but I believed in Allah, right? I had this inclination to believing in Allah. But even that, did you believe in the Prophet ﷺ? You with me? Because someone can believe in Allah and be a non-Muslim. So, someone says, oh, I'm born Muslim. What does that mean? You believed in Allah and His Messenger? You may believe in Allah, believe in a God, but you didn't believe in the Messenger, so you weren't Muslim when you were born, or as you were younger. Not everyone's born Muslim. Because even when we say aslama in the Arabic language, aslama, the morphological form means to enter into a state. So man aslama has entered into Islam. It's not returning. They're entering into Islam. They're entering into a spiritual realm they've never been in before. Believing in Allah and His Messenger. Sorry, slight digression. So the point being is, so someone who's an apostate, they became Muslim or they were born Muslim, they leave Islam and then they return, right? So that person has to fast, even as a non-Muslim, as an apostate, right? If they don't, they're sinful. If they return to Islam, they have to make it up. Someone becomes Muslim at the age of 30. Do we say, oh, you have 15 years to make up since you became, what do you call it? You became of age.
47 for me.
Huh? 47. MashaAllah, Abdul Karim, you got what? 32 years to make up of fasting? No. So the one that becomes Muslim doesn't have to make up those fasts, right? It'll be way too. Imagine that 20-30 years, some more, some less. And the Prophet said he didn't command those who became Muslim to make up their fasts or their prayers. However, the one who leaves Islam, they're born Muslim, go to uni, get brainwashed, right? Happens. Leave Islam, then they come back to Islam when they're 30, they have to make up those fasts. Why? Because you knew the truth. You left Islam and then you came back, you have to make up those fasts now, and those prayers. Sanity is a second condition, right? So someone who is insane does not have to fast. Someone's not mentally there, right? They don't have to fast. Nor would their fast be valid if they chose to fast. The absence of menstruation or postnatal bleeding, right? So if a woman's on her cycle, or she's just given birth and she's experiencing postnatal bleeding, her fast's not valid. It's impermissible for a woman to fast with the intention of fasting. Haram to fast. She's on her cycle, her menses, or she's postnatal bleeding, she can't fast. Her fast is not valid. A woman whose period ends during the day of Ramadan, right? So she woke up on her cycle, didn't pray Fajr, of course, because she was on her cycle, went to sleep, woke up for Dhuhr, right? At 2 o'clock, Dhuhr time's still in, her cycle finishes. Does she have to fast? She doesn't have to. It's recommended, right, for her to abstain from eating and drinking, but she doesn't have to. Is that clear? Wakes up, not fasting, she's on her cycle. At 2 o'clock, 2 p.m. cycle finishes. Does she have to fast? She doesn't have to. She's recommended to, but she doesn't have to. Why? Because she started the day and her fast wasn't sound, because she was on her cycle. So because the day is invalid, she can't fast part of the day. So she doesn't have to fast, she can eat and drink until Maghrib, and then she makes up that fast after Ramadan. Now, if her cycle begins in the middle of the day, likewise, or not likewise, but she won't have to fast. So she's wakes up fasting, right? She wakes up fasting, and she prays Fajr, she goes to sleep, wakes up, Dhuhr 2 p.m, she sees blood, right? Her fast is invalid for that day, and she can eat and drink. Why? Because she's on her cycle now, and she makes that day up. Those two examples clear?
Why with the first one she has to continue on with the second one?
Sorry?
But the first one is recommended for her.
Yeah. Recommended there was. So if her cycle, what was the example? If her cycle stops, it's recommended she fasts. Yeah, not obligatory. You're asking why? Because basically, because there was a time during the day where she was on her cycle, that whole day is rendered invalid. So fasting for half of the day, she doesn't have to. It's recommended to do so because if people know, for example, like her 13-year-old daughter knows her cycle's finished, right? And she still sees mommy eating. You could confuse her, are you with me? She's recommended to abstain, but she doesn't have to. She doesn't have to. Inshallah, one of our teachers said that when you ask a student, do they understand? You're asking them to lie. They just go, So if anything's not clear, then you know.
She should show that she's eating in fact, or stop, carries on eating.
Sorry?
Fasting, then out of respect she wouldn't eat in front of them, right?
Yeah, so the one of the wisdoms could be is that if people know her cycle's finished, yet she's still eating, it could cause them confusion. Are you with me? Like, why is mummy, she's praying, she prayed Asr, right? Or like she prays in the mosque. She prays in the mosque in Ramadan and then has a drink, and everyone's like, whoa, like you're praying, you with me, but you're drinking. And she can obviously say, no, my cycle's finished, but it's recommended, not obligatory, for her to continue fasting.
Even for a traveler, if he travels, he should not eat in front of the people. He was confusion for the rest of the community.
Beautiful. Another good example, yeah. So someone's traveling in Ramadan, he goes to Liverpool, mashallah, he's outside, halal KFC, right, or wherever he is, orders a, nice Big Mac or a lamb doner, 2 p.m, right? And everyone's like, whoa, what's happening? I'm traveling. He could do that, but it's recommended, as you said, not to do so, because this could cause problems. Now, so the faster, so someone who's fasting, right, they start the day fasting. They leave the borders of their city before Fajr. They can omit the fast. They don't have to fast, right? They're traveling from London to go to Liverpool. They go past the M25 before Fajr. It means they've left London before Fajr, right? They don't have to fast. So when they get to Liverpool, which is their destination, they can have lunch, right? Have a cup of tea, no problem.
Does it matter why they're going there?
Provided, so as long as it's not like a journey which is haram. Traveling to, like someone's going to Las Vegas, right? They leave before Fajr. I'd have to fast. No, you have to fast because it's haram. You're going to do haram. You with me? So provided the journey is permissible, it doesn't have to be a specific reason. No.
It's also not a loophole. It's also not used as a loophole.
Exactly. I will.
You know what? I might just take a trip to Liverpool because I've never been there, so I don't need to fast today. But the intention is to not fast that day, and they're using travel as the reason why they didn't fast.
But provided the journey is permissible, it's okay. So as long as the journey is permissible, right, then they don't have to They don't have to fast now. The thing is that like there are if you want to, like a'udhu billah, someone could like avoid paying zakat their whole life. But there are loopholes, yani. You with me? You can find loopholes. If you want to, you can pray Dhuhr in like 2.5 minutes. If you wanted to. I'm not recommending it, of course. You shouldn't do it. There's a loophole, yani. Loophole, you know. But so yeah, provided you're traveling. So the conditions for a traveler to omit the fast, not to fast, is they leave before Fajr, right? They leave before Fajr, the borders of their city or town. In London, that'll be the M25, or in smaller cities, it'll be, you know, where the kind of city would. This is where it ends. This is where Liverpool ends. This is where Manchester ends. As long as they leave those borders before Fajr, they can omit the fast now.
If they go halfway through the day, they have to go somewhere far because for whatever reason, like a doctor or something, he has to go travel and he's fasting. Does he stop fasting?
So the doctor, he's in London at 3 p.m. Well, let's say he's in London at 9 a.m. He gets a call. He has to go to Liverpool for whatever reason, right? The question is, so you're asking, can he break his fast? So he can't. Why? Because he's left after Fajr. There is an opinion in the Shafi'i school that in a situation one could do so, right? But such an opinion shouldn't be taken unless it was absolutely necessary. You with me? So the dominant opinion, the strongest opinion in the Shafi'i school, is that if you travel after Fajr, even if it's a long journey, you have to fast. There is an opinion that says that person doesn't have to fast, but such an opinion shouldn't be taken unless it's absolutely necessary. Yeah. So we said the absence of menses, the menstruation and the like. Fasting after the 15th of Sha'ban. Said Ahmed, what's the
fasting after the 15th of Sha'ban? If it's a wird or a qada, then you can carry on fasting after the 15th of Sha'ban. Or if you consecutively fast after the 15th, right, you can fast. But if it's interrupted, right, say for example on the 21st, then you cannot fast after. So generally it's actually impermissible to fast after the 15th of Sha'ban if it's not a wird or qada.
Do you mean to say, Ahmed, beautiful. So fasting after the 15th of Sha'ban is impermissible, as Said Ahmed mentioned. There are exceptions. Right, so someone says, so what's the 15th of Sha'ban? When do we say the 15th of Sha'ban is? So,
the 15th night, right?
Yeah, so when would it be permissible? On what day? The 15th, 16th, 14th?
The 15th is completed, i.e. the 15th is completed and you're onto the 16th night now.
Jamil, okay. So the fasting after the 15th of Sha'ban in the Shafi'i school is haram. When's the 15th? The 16th day. The hadith that mentions fasting the 15th day says قُومُوا لَيْلَهَا وَصُومُوا نَهَارَهَا. Okay, so the night comes before the day. Okay, it's the 14th of Sha'ban, right? 14th of Sha'ban. The night after that's the 15th. The following day is the 15th day. Is that clear? Right? You're allowed to fast the 15th. Recommended to fast the 15th. To fast after the 15th of Sha'ban is impermissible. Why? Because it may weaken someone, and it's like you know the home stretch when you're running, right? It's the home stretch. Like imagine sprinting before the home stretch. You with me? Someone's doing a marathon, and halfway through, they start sprinting. It's like, why are you sprinting now? No, wait until the home stretch and then you sprint. So similarly, when fasting after the 15th of Sha'ban, it's like sprinting before the home stretch. The home stretch is Ramadan. You should work as hard as you can that month. That's the sprint, right? The whole year you're jogging, fasting a few days if you can, you're praying. The whole year you're jogging. When it gets to Ramadan, home stretch, 100-meter sprint, right? To sprint before that could make Ramadan difficult. If you sprint before the end of the marathon, you get to the end, mushkila, right? So someone says, Ramadan's coming, I'm going to fast the whole of Sha'ban. Ramadan comes and they're too weak to fast. That's the wisdom. So fasting after the 15th of Sha'ban is impermissible for the given reason. The exception is if it's a wird, as Sayyid Ahmed mentions, if it's a wird, right? So if someone has a wird, they always fast Mondays and Thursdays, they're allowed to fast after the 15th of Sha'ban. It's qada. Someone travelled in Ramadan last year and they didn't make it up, right? Or a woman was on a cycle in Ramadan, which means she had fasting to make up, she didn't. Means that she has to make it up. Anyone who has qada can make it up after the 15th of Sha'ban. No. And there was another one mentioned, but that should suffice, inshallah. Is that clear? Is that wadih? Inshallah. I remember when I first started studying Arabic, right? I first went to, I didn't know the difference between ha and kha. So I thought kayfa haluka was kayfa. I'm not going to say it because it's wrong, but you know. I remember it took me two or 3 weeks to differentiate between min and men. Min means like from. Men means who. I could not get my head around it. 2 or 3 weeks. How am I going to learn a whole language if I can't learn this difference between 2 small words? Learning takes time. It's, you know, and when you first hear something, it can sound strange. So inshallah, inshallah, it's clear. Inshallah. If it's not, please say something. So we know when the fast is deemed is considered sound. Now there's another section here which is similar, but we say, when is it obligatory? When does fasting become wajib on a person? When do we say so and so? Musa, sah? How old are you, Musa? 14. Okay, Musa's 14, right? Right. So when do we say so and so has to fast? Right. The first one is becoming Muslim, right? So being a Muslim. So Muslims have to fast, right? Have to fast. Muslims have to fast. Kutiba alaykum as-siyam. Okay, fasting was prescribed on you. Kama kutiba alladhina qablakum, as was prescribed as before you. Reaching puberty, right? So we say so and so. If you're Muslim, you have to fast. Does that mean a 6-year-old has to fast? No, of course not. But they're Muslim. But they're not baligh. They haven't reached puberty. Right? So the signs of puberty, having a wet dream, right? Having a wet dream is one sign. So a young boy, right, has a wet dream, it means he's reached puberty. Or a young girl starts her cycle, provided she's older than 9 years old, she's reached puberty. Then they have to fast, okay? So Zayd, he's 13 years old, has a wet dream, right? He now has to fast. Why? Because he's reached puberty. And the other sign of puberty is reaching 15. So Zayd is almost 15. He hasn't had a wet dream, right? No wet dream at 15. He becomes 15, automatically becomes baligh, right? Even though there's no wet dream. So any boy that's 15, automatically he's reached puberty, right? But that's 15 in accordance with the Hijri calendar, right? Not the Gregorian, and it means they become 15 sooner, because it's shorter by about 10 days. So most 14-year-olds, you have to work out, of course, but the most 14-year-olds, if they follow in relation to the Gregorian calendar, they'll be 15 now. So parents are obliged to, at the age of 7, right? So a parent has to command their child to fast at 7, right? Similarly, praying, right? Because the hadith has mentioned about praying, and the Shafi'i is the qiyas, and said if the parents have to tell their children to pray at 7, also to fast. Young girls also to cover, right? Young girls to cover at the age of 7. Parents have to say at the age of 7 to your children, you have to pray, have to cover yourself, have to fast, right? Obligatory upon the parents, not the child. What does that mean? Aisha is 7 years old. Her father has to tell her to cover. and her mother, right? Aisha doesn't cover. No one's sinful. Is that clear? Is that clear? Aisha's 7 years old. She's 7. Her mum and dad have to say, Aisha, make sure you cover your hair when you're at the house. But she doesn't cover her hair. No one's sinful. Why? Because the child is not baligh yet, and the parent has fulfilled their obligation. Right? At the age of 10, the parent is allowed to strike them if they don't obey. Right? So Aisha's 7 years old. Her father says to her, "Yeah, Aisha, make sure you cover your hair." She doesn't listen. Doesn't listen. Doesn't listen. Doesn't listen. At the age of 10, he's permitted to strike her. Not before that. Right? He's permitted to strike her, he or she, mother or father, permitted to strike Aisha if she doesn't listen. We say permitted, we don't say obligatory. Right? There are certain conditions if a parent wants to strike their child. The scholars mention 3 conditions. It can't be like a severe beating. Right? Can't be severe. It can't be more than 3 blows. And the parent, it's not meant to cause like pain, you with me? It's just, and the third condition is the parent has to think the desired result will come about. So if they know their child's rebellious, right, and they know hitting them will make it worse, they shouldn't hit them. And when I've heard some scholars speaking about the striking, that I heard one scholar speaking about the striking, and he got his siwak or his pen, and when basically like that, because it's not meant to cause pain. That's not the point of this. That's not the point. The point is you didn't listen to what I was saying. Now it has to get physical. But the point's not to cause pain. The point saying is, why did I have to transition from admonishing you verbally to now striking physically? And that's the point. Or like a scarf. It's not going to hurt the child, but it's saying you didn't listen. Now you're going to feel, but I'm not causing you pain. I'm just letting you know that this is serious enough for this to be physical now. And I've seen scholars that will get like a really really soft broom, and they'll go like that. The child's almost literally like feeling a scarf, right? But that's the point. And it's funny because when I've seen this happen, the child was like crying, right? Not because of the pain. It was literally the same as this. Not because of the pain, because her father was so upset with her that she didn't listen to his verbal discipline, admonishing. You with me? So he struck her, but like this, and she was crying because she disappointed her father. No. Any questions so far? Inshallah, it's clear. Any questions? Okay, so so when the child reaches puberty, if they choose not to fast, now they're sinful. You with me? So a 7-year-old doesn't fast, they're not sinful. 10-year-old, not sinful. Right? Only when they reach puberty and the child's now responsible for themselves, then they become sinful. Before they're not sinful, but the parent has to go out of their way to ensure they fast. But if the child doesn't listen, then the child's not sinful until they reach puberty. No. So fasting is obligatory upon who? Upon the Muslim. Who has what? Has reached puberty. Right? Fasting is it's obligatory upon the one who's capable, right? Capable meaning they can endure the fast, right? So someone who's a senior member, for example, right? Someone of advanced years. Someone of advanced years, if tiring exhausts them, they don't have to fast. So a father, a grandfather, or an uncle that's senior and they're in their old age, if fasting exhausts them, they don't have to fast. and they pay the fidya, and we'll talk about that, the fidya in another lesson. Someone who suffers from like a terminal illness or like an illness they're not expected to recover from. Right, so some people that are diabetic, I know diabetic people that never fast because they have to eat and drink throughout the day, otherwise it will cause major problems. So they're young, 20, 30, right? They don't have to fast. Why? Because they're diabetic, and if they don't eat and drink, then it'll cause them a lot of harm. Never fast. Some diabetic people do fast. It depends on the severity. I know diabetic people that do and don't. I know people terminal illnesses. So I remember I was someone who had some kind of problem, and they said if I fast, I'm in hospital. Like the next day, they have to fast. They can eat and drink the whole of Ramadan, and they pay the fidya afterwards, or after every day. A woman who's breastfeeding, or a woman who's pregnant. Okay, if she apprehends harm to herself or her child, she doesn't have to fast. Being unwell, right? Being unwell, not just like a headache or I got a headache, bro. No. Something that's causing like severe pain, or it will delay recovery, make the illness worse. There would be dispensation not to fast. Or someone needs to take medicine during the day, and if they don't, because it will cause them severe pain, or excessive hunger, excessive thirst, likely to cause death or illness, severe illness. Likewise, reasons not to fast. This is an interesting one. So those who work hard labor, right? Hard labor. For example, the book, in Bushra Kareem, they give us like a farmer, right? Like a farmer. Hard labor, they have to make the intention to fast the night before, right? They make the intention to fast, and then during the day, if it becomes extremely difficult, right? Not just a little bit, bit hot and sweaty, becomes extremely difficult, they're allowed to omit. They're allowed to break their fast, and then they make it up. But they can't anticipate that. They can't say, "Oh, I'm not going to make the intention not fast because I work hard labor." No, you have to make the intention. You begin the day fasting. If it becomes extremely difficult, then you can eat and drink. But every day they have to do that. They can't just say, "Oh, I work hard labor, I'm not going to fast." No, you have to do it because there may be a day it doesn't exhaust you. You with me? There may be a day it's easier, so you can't not fast. You have to fast.
Or it rains, the weather becomes cool and nice.
Exactly. Yeah. So there's many reasons why it may not be difficult on that specific day. So you have to make the intention. Begin the fast. If it becomes extremely difficult, you're allowed to eat and drink that. Now a similar example, also an interesting one, is if one has a certain job, right, and that's the only means they have to support their family, and they can't fulfill that, they can't perform that, they can't do the job to its required standard without eating and drinking. There's a difference between the previous one is it has to be extremely difficult and it's hard labor. This one was saying the son who has a job and they can't do the job to the standards required without eating and drinking, and it's the only means they have to support their family, right? Is that clear? They're allowed to break their fast. Why? Because if they don't eat and drink, their wife and children are gonna not have food to eat and drink.
What about those players, like football players? No, because they are on a positions, that's their job, related to like cricket players and all of them. Most of them which I've seen or seen, they're fasting.
Yeah, to be honest, honestly, that's a question I'm still looking for the answer for. Wallahu alam. I haven't come across anything, and I haven't received an answer from my teachers who I've asked. So I'm not sure. Wallahu alam. Obviously, if they're choosing to, but whether they're allowed to not omit the fast, I'm not sure. Wallahu alam. If I find the answer, inshallah.
They have dietitians, yes, and I'm sure that they take loads of training during the day. But like you say about if they're doing an away game, say football
Yeah, but with
he's going from Liverpool to London. You say before Fajr, if he knows he's going to travel, then he omits that day because he knows he's traveling. Maybe, I don't know.
I didn't think of that. That's a really good point, mashallah. Beautiful. So if that's a really good point. So if a footballer's traveling, yeah, before Fajr, right? They leave their city before Fajr, 100% they'd have to fast. Nothing to do with their football, right? Even, the football fan that came with them, and he's sitting there with his, yeah. So provide they're travellers, right, then they're okay. But they have to leave before Fajr, of course. But the problem with the whole thing about sportsmen is that these guys are millionaires. Do you know what I mean? Like, really? You miss one match? I'm saying I don't know the answer to this question, but it's a nuanced point,
No,
But
because it's very much related with our day and age. Like you say, Muhammad Salah, India, and some other.
yeah. No, if they're travellers, khalas, Jasmine, they don't have to fast because nothing to do with their football because they're travellers. But whether those sportsmen can, wallah a'lam, Allah knows best. I haven't found the answer to that question here. Wallah a'lam. Naam. Let's just see how much we've got left because this lesson's. Okay, this is the last point. Don't worry, almost done. Well, last few points. Short and long days, right? There's no evidence that suggests that fasting, if one has so I remember when I first became Muslim, you're fasting from, if you follow the 18 degrees rule, you're fasting from literally 1:14 or 1:20 until 9:40 or 9:30, right, approximately. There's no evidence that suggests you're allowed to omit the fast. Basically, you have to fast, right? That's the default. Because there's no evidence to suggest that one's allowed to break their fast. However, right, going back to the previous point we mentioned, that if one experiences extreme thirst and hunger, likely to cause death or illness, they can omit their fast. Not because the day's long, because of the principle we mentioned that if it's very difficult, likely to cause death or illness, you can break the fast. Whether the day's long or short, the length of the day is irrelevant. It's about the difficulty one experiences. The Hanafis and the Hanafis and the Malikis, it's slightly easier. So if it doesn't have to be such an extreme difficulty, basically. If it's difficult, they're allowed to. One sec. Yeah, so if it becomes difficult, that person will be allowed to omit their fast, and they'd make up another day. No. That's the Hanafi position, and there's an opinion with the Malikis that no. So the traveller can fast, they don't have to. Woman on her cycle is not allowed to fast. The difference, and they both have to make it up. No. No. Any questions? So a long journey. The journey, there has to be 81 kilometers, 50 miles, right? In order to say, so let's say someone leaves London before Fajr, they go past M25, but they're going to Luton, or wherever they're going. Sorry, I'm not sure how far Luton is, but wherever they're going that's less than that. If it's a short journey, they have to fast. It's only if it's a long journey, 81 kilometers, 50 miles. Right. Wallahu a'lam. Inshallah, that's the first 3 sections completed. Any questions before we end?
This Ramadan, we had a very rare case. I don't know any Ramadan I've been alive that has happened with the solar eclipse. And there were some Akis in my masjid. They were saying it's a new moon because of the solar eclipse.
MashaAllah.
And they said that this could be Eid now. Well, I know that seems a bit crazy to say, but
It didn't hit us here. It wasn't.
but that is about sighting of the moon in different areas in North America. They saw it, but there was local there. But they said, isn't that considered a new moon because it disappeared and then came back?
I'm not following how on earth they conflate a solar eclipse with a new moon, yani.
I say only 2 guys in the masjid.
MashaAllah. Tell them to write a fatwa. I'd love to see that fatwa. No.
That was waffling, okay.
No. MashaAllah. Any questions, Allah?
New moon has to be crescent, like it has to be very thin.
Exactly,
And the
yeah.
same moon gets bigger and smaller, it's not.
Yeah. What date was it?
29th.
No, the eclipse.
Yeah, like 28th. It was like the last days of Ramadan.
Wallahu alam. Wallahu alam. I'm not sure how they reached that conclusion. I need to hear more about it to comment in. It's not clear what they were. You with me?
Even when he raised it with me, I was surprised.
But if it was the 28th, khalas, like it doesn't even. Yeah. I need to hear what they actually said to.
I think it was the 29th.
The point being is if the moon has been sighted, yani, then if it hasn't been sighted, it's not about the moon has to have been seen. No. Wallahu alam. Questions? MashaAllah. We ask Allah to accept our efforts and make this knowledge a means of bringing us close to Him subhanahu wa ta'ala. We ask Him to forgive us of our sins and our shortcomings. We ask Him to gaze upon our hearts and to purify our hearts and purify our souls. We ask Him to allow us to be steadfast after the month of Ramadan. We ask Him to give victory to all the Muslims that have been deemed weak and mustada'afin. We ask Him to give victory to our brothers in Palestine and give them strength, make them steadfast. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen.
I don't see around here, so I never get to ask those. Fine. I like to. Luton, yeah.
How many miles is it?
No focus. I should move further. Yeah, that's the thing I like myself, because it's out travel. Is it also even if you don't have to?
So it goes back to individual. The scholars say if they find difficulty, it's better not to fast. If they're strong enough, then it's better to fast.
I know the more.
It's better to do the fast in that instance.
Yeah, but the fidya is paid for missing for traveling. No?
We're
You have to make it up.
breaking a lot of
You make it up.
rules because we don't drink.
The point being is, if the individual finds difficulty, it's actually, they receive more reward in not fasting.
Really?
But if the person is able to, they receive more reward in fasting. It's about the intention. So, for example, let's say someone found it really difficult and they fasted, they receive less reward than breaking their fast.
There's a danger they could do.
Another example is when they say that if someone finds like a difficulty in taking dispensations, they don't like the idea of it, it's better for them. So you want some travelling long distance, they can enjoy the prayers and short. If they say I don't like the idea of that, they receive more than doing
In all of them, most
it's a gift. Exactly.
Salam. I see.
Okay.
Where'd you live?
The companions, when they went to war, imagine, some of them, they're travelling, some of them fasted, some of them didn't, and they both have amazing rewards. They're on the battlefield.
Good example. Can't beat that.
Always nice to see you. How you doing?
I sent you that video, but I know you was here because I was right here.
Yeah, I saw
and
that.
I'll see you come over to it's cool too. Yeah. It's really inspirational. Yeah. It's true what he says.
It's just really true. Very, very inspiring.
And the old guy.
Yeah, but honestly, like there is, if you look at that, I hope with the right eyes, Yannick, is that our elders are not respected.
Yeah.
People should look away from them. They should be kissing his hand, right?
Yeah.
And it's unbecoming, right, for him to do what he did. But I don't blame him, to be honest. Honestly, like, I'm not condoning it, and he shouldn't have done it. Anonymously, it was too much of a scene, giving a talk. It was unbecoming, but he doesn't receive enough respect for it. And the fact he has to raise his voice and say, you know, I am. it's not good for Muslims to do that, but I 100% know where it's coming from. Like people should carry him in, right? Kiss his hand, give him a chair. 100%.
But the way his reaction was,
I hope that's not recording.
his reaction was perfect.
Oh, beautiful.
Beautiful.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah, beautiful reaction. But he's used to it, I suppose.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, see you. Shan.
Good to see you, man.
Hey. Jazakallah khair for your message.
Yeah, I message you when you can.
Yeah. No, I'm just here tonight, just doing my grandma. So, alhamdulillah. How's everything? How's classes?
Yeah, they're good. So Ramadan will continue this. I've got my one tomorrow.
Is that the clarity of confusion on, isn't it? What's that about? What book is it?
It's not. So it's just
the youth.
6 and 25. Any questions they have about marriage,
Assalamu alaikum.
It's
Like a reunion or something.
How you doing?
Alhamdulillah, good. Okay, how are you? Yeah, good to see you too, man. Alhamdulillah. Ustadh, give it up. Well, good. Jazakallah khair, man. Everything good, yeah? Alhamdulillah. Let me just finish up.
Did it
close up shop.
did it record?